if you guys can just sit there and if you can listen, then you might be able to learn something, okay? It's recapping all the things we discussed and among other things, but it has to be said. All right, so you guys pay attention. I'll try not to be long-winded. And then we'll probably get to the movie, okay? You guys with me?
Yes.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our time is up in this class. Though it was a productive year, I can't help but feel like I'm leaving a lot of work unfinished. In my mind, you're still all works in progress. Here in this classroom, your minds were the canvas and the background paint has been put on, but what picture is actually to emerge? This time of the school year, I realize it's too late for me to teach you much more that would have a huge impact on the way you perceive the world. By now, you've either learned a lot from me and from your experiences in this classroom, or you have not. If you feel that you have not, then I'll take the blame. But in reality, the jury is still out, and the ultimate measure is not how well you did on the EOCT. The ultimate measure will be the feelings of doubt and suspicion that arise every time you hear people rationalize and try to justify the use of initiatory force in the past, the present, and indeed the future. So integrating into your thought processes these concepts and using what you have learned this year is very important. Indeed crucial to not only your success as an individual, but to your very happiness. Please take to heart and mind what I say here and never forget it, for you may never hear someone say something like this to you again. Since this is my last year in American public education, I can't help but convey to you my absolute fear that consumes me when I think of the outright irrationalities, dishonesties, and insanities that teachers and adults will try to feed you next year and in years to come. It may be done intentionally or through ignorance. Either way, there's no way for me to describe in these few comments how destructive it can be. It torments me to think that these things I taught you in this small amount of time are not strong enough, or not explained clearly enough. We're too over your head to withstand the constant onslaught of other people's stupidity. I knew that the concepts I was teaching you were so foreign, I might as well have taught the class in German. Your age is a very sensitive age. Your perceptions can be easily molded and by those who are proponents of the so-called easy life. Nature has programmed every individual with a default setting of laziness, and this is what dishonest people automatically default to whenever things get difficult. Why? Because it's easy. Dishonesty is the root of all stupidity, irrationalities, and failure. A dishonest person is a loser. Honesty, on the other hand, is the foundation for success and happiness. Honesty is objective and is always applied virtuously in every circumstance by rational people. The ultimate battle that you will be fighting in life will, at its essence, not be against the station you were born into, nor against another socioeconomic class, nor a political party or a hostile nation. It's a battle against dishonesty. The extent to which you apply honesty in your life is the extent to which you will be happy and successful, regardless of how rich or poor you were when you were born. Remember, there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. At the same time, being honest may not necessarily get you a lot of friends, but it will always get you the right ones. So what was the ultimate goal? What was the purpose in convening here for an hour, 5 days a week, and learning history? More importantly, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning or purpose to life? That's left up to the individual, so many people say. True. It's up to the individual to find meaning in his or her life, but the purpose is self-evident and requires no justification. And if you are honest enough with yourself, you'll know this to be accurate. There's no way around it. The purpose of life is to be happy and to live in accordance with your own nature. Thomas Jefferson knew this back in 1776 and worked alongside the other founding fathers to establish the very first government in the history of the world to be founded on the idea that people are born naturally free, with rights that can't be taken away from them or infringed upon. The individual's pursuit of happiness, whatever, for the individual that might be. It's simple, it's beautiful, it's natural, it's even spiritual. We must all learn to live and let live and root our relationships with other people, not necessarily on the concept of respect, but of tolerance. And the acceptance and the adherence to this formula is the only way that any civilization in the universe can progress and prosper forever into the future without limitations. So my ultimate goal was to transfer valuable information and build knowledge in you that would lead to you all becoming extremely successful and happy, value creators, and to prevent you from becoming dangerous, miserable value destroyers. In doing this, I also play a part in preserving a future of freedom and prosperity for myself and my loved ones. For if a nation expects to be generally ignorant and free, it expects truly what never was and never will be. You don't believe me? Just look at the voters in presidential elections. Ask yourself why the founders favored a republic over democracy. Ask yourself why they created the Electoral College. As scholars of the Enlightenment, they knew the dangers of ignorance and tyranny by the uninformed majority. Thus, in order to stave off those dangers, I tried to give you the information you needed to protect yourself from those who would inevitably seek to destroy you in the future. It's going to be up to you to do this for yourself. Let's hope you're up to the challenge. My overall message in this class is in no way, shape, or form part of the mainstream ideologies espoused by those who are invested in the typical establishment modes of thinking. Early on in this course, some of you thought you'd heard all these things before, then you probably tuned out and you lost out, bringing new meaning to the slang term YOLO. You only listened once. Some of you thought, shut up, Coach Clements, and just tell us what we need in order to pass the OCT. And that attitude is a symptom of the overall problem. It's not your fault, and I don't blame you. But the overall problem is that the establishment powers that be have taught you to want to be spoon-fed information without having to use brain power to understand its true significance. This is done intentionally to make you mindless minions who are merely capable of carrying out the most basic tasks and following orders and nothing more. But I'm here to tell you that more crucial than the need to know important historical events is the need for the individual to understand historical events in full context. I can assure you that real education is not a state-mandated curriculum, which essentially boils down to indoctrination, teaching only what they want you to know, as opposed to what you actually need to know. The horribly boring and agenda-based state-mandated curriculum creates a misinformed population and established mode of thinking that puts most of its emphasis on impotent concepts. Concepts like embracing diversity and sacrificing for the public good, as well as insanely exalting politicians who have destroyed progress as heroes. For example, in order to stay on pace with the curriculum, we had to devote a far greater amount of time to learning about the power-mongering four-term President FDR and his New Deal, the monopoly-busting progressives, the New Left and the counterculture, than we ever could to Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, the Wright brothers, even Albert Einstein. And we wonder where all the Renaissance men, the great innovators, the inventors, and creators have gone in America. When we are taught that business is bad and taught to feel guilt for our earned happiness and wealth, where's the incentive to create? We wonder why government is growing exponentially and our economy is declining further and further until we will eventually see total systemic collapse. Consequently, we did not learn near as much about how man conquered nature as we did about how man conquered man. Perhaps you found those concepts and ideas I was trying to expose you to somewhat threatening. Why? Just remember that no advanced or prosperous civilization could ever survive unless it was open to new and enlightened ideas. We cannot be prisoners of the past. We must be the enlightened and intellectual pioneers of the future. In order to preserve our future and our happiness, we have to find a way to destroy the rule of man, which is at the core of all the world's problems. The elite ruling class always enforces its subjective and unjust law through initiatory force. Like mass murderer Mao Zedong said, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Think about all the atrocities committed by a government that we've learned about this year. How were they committed? They were committed through the use of initiatory force, unjustifiable force initiated against intellectually and physically unarmed or disarmed innocents. Some of the worst atrocities were committed against value-creating businessmen, but our curriculum will never tell you that. They were successful in committing those crimes because of the monopoly on force that the government has. Ironic, isn't it, that they seek to break up so many monopolies through the use of the greatest monopoly on earth, their very own monopoly on force. However, the root of the problem is that flaw-filled man rules subjectively by his own whims, bias, prejudice, agendas, rather than adhering to the objective rule of rational law. If we're going to survive and restore the greatness of America, preserve our freedoms, secure our prosperity, then we must force the elite ruling class and the governing body to adhere to the rule of law once again, especially by amending the U.S. Constitution with the prime law, as per the 12 Visions Party. This would eliminate the rule of man once and for all in our nation's governing body. This would lead to an unprecedented level of prosperity that would increase everyone's buying power to that of a millionaire. Period. What are the major obstacles to this? Number one, our own stupidity and ignorance. As a country, we may not be smart enough to recognize the problem. And none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. We have to become informed and at least somewhat enlightened intellectuals again. Number two, our pessimism and the belief that nothing we can do can change it. This turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy because from pessimism comes absolutely nothing. From nothing comes nothing. Conversely, from the belief that things can and must improve through our own rational actions comes everything. Everything. Get over the irrational apathy and indifference by asking yourself where it stems from. The only thing that is required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. The parasites is number three. Countries engaged in a de facto battle that pits value destroyers, the losers, against the value creators, the people who are the motor of the world and hold the world on their shoulders. Many people use the government today to seize wealth and assume their own responsibilities, unaware of the fact the more power they give the government to do things for them, the more they give it to do things to them. They simply want other people's stuff. These people are growing in number and use the vote as a deadly weapon of mass destruction. The value creators must galvanize and find a way to overcome the moocher at the voting booth. So be aware of the many ways that initiatory force is used and work to stop it. The problem with freedom is that by definition, the individual who lives in a free country has no obligation to protect it. Even worse, the moment most people feel like they need to fight to protect it, it's too late. That's why freedom is a double-edged sword, defended at the point of one end, destroyed at the point of another. Power of freedom is represented by the unprecedented prosperity that this country enjoyed as a result of a few enlightened radicals and conspirators who tried to eliminate the rule of man in its government. Even after all the horrific wars, the bad political policies, economic depressions, and social conflict, we're still piggybacking the wave of prosperity that stems directly from the enlightened ideas of the Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution. Still, most people either don't care or are ignorant to the fact that this prosperity is finite. It's dwindling away at a very, very rapid rate. If we do nothing to stem the trend, the will of man, leading to the decline of our liberties and prosperity in this country, we will witness the country's collapse and with it our future. Believe me. Chaos, civil unrest, and tyranny will ensue. Now, I know I'm boring you. I want you all to keep something in mind. You are an individual. You do not need nor have to identify yourself as a part of a group. Most people defer to the group mentality and give up their own sovereignty and individuality because they feel more powerful and more secure with going with the flow, not rocking the boat, fitting in, and maintaining the status quo. Use your powers of discernment wisely. It's always to your detriment to abdicate who you are for the so-called benefit of your fellow man. So keep in mind that the urge to save humanity is almost always a false face for the urge to rule it. You have no obligation to anyone except yourself and your loved ones. And losers who are not willing to put in the same amount of work are the ones who want you to give back because they do not believe that a person is a product of his or her own hard work and wise decisions. Therefore, they perceive your hard work as exploitation. But just as nobody owes you a living, you owe nobody else anything. Inside each and every one of you is a genius without exception. I really believe that. It can be squelched and your value never realized, or you can fight tooth and nail ferociously to defend your genius against the parasitical ruling class who will enviously seek to stifle it. So you have to let go and purge yourself of all the concepts and ideas that you thought were given, understood, and unchangeable. For example, you have no constitutional guarantee your vote will count in a presidential election. Tough if you think so. You do not have a natural right to health care or a free public education. America is not a democracy. It is a republic. We are not all equal, nor can anyone ever, ever be equal to another. There is no wisdom or accuracy in the statement that everybody does it or everybody knows it when trying to justify why someone chose to do something they knew is morally dubious. I can assure you not everyone does it, nor do they know it. Besides that, even if most people do, it's very possible the majority could be wrong. So you're an individual and your actions are not dependent upon nor judged according to what everyone else does, thinks, knows, or says. Your definition of everyone will steadily and consistently decrease to an even smaller amount of people throughout your lifetime, eventually down to just you and your loved ones. That's who everyone will eventually be to you. So, last few messages. Pay good attention to what I'm about to say. I honestly believe, while I'm over in Germany, I'll be thinking about this. Your generation could become the greatest generation. I really believe that. You have an incredible destiny to propel our civilization to heights that have never before been dreamed by the ignorant masses. They exist in their tiny little cave of entitlement, government handouts, mysticisms, dishonesties, Twitter, Facebook, video games, reality TV, and do not even know there's such a thing as an enlightened way of thinking. It's sad. And a mode of existence that exists beyond what you know. So my message is clear. Live as a value creator. Live as your own authority. Do not infringe on anyone else's life, liberty, or property. I can't guarantee you success and happiness, but I can guarantee you misery if you live your life as a value destroyer. Making money by living a parasitical life does not make you a success. It makes you a miserable failure. Because in order to sustain your parasitical life and make yourself feel important, you must engage in ever greater usurpations of other people's wealth, fame, power, success, and happiness. Therefore, don't live the life of a leech or of a life-sucking parasite. Take control of your life. Go out into the world. Be a shining light to all you meet. And most of all, be happy.